Please be seated. Most of us have read, whether we wanted to or not, the classic of high school literature, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. It is recognized not only as one of Dickens' best novels, but as one of the greatest books of all time. It's a coming-of-age tale told in first person by Pip, the orphan boy who sets his heart on becoming a gentleman so as to win the hand of the beautiful but scornful Estella. There is an entire cast of colorful characters, but the most memorable, hands down, is the embittered Miss Havisham, left at the altar, you will remember, on her wedding day. Dickens' description of Miss Havisham's house reads like set directions for a Halloween haunted house. Chains across the front door, boarded up windows, all the clocks stopped at 20 minutes to 9. As for Miss Havisham herself, she has become a ghoulish figure, still dressed in her tattered and faded bridal gown, long withered flowers in her now white hair, her body shrunken to skin and bone. She would be almost comic were it not for the cruelty of her determination to avenge the humiliation she suffered by training Estella to break men's hearts. At one point, she counsels Pip, "Love her, love her, love her. If she favors you, love her. If she wounds you, love her. If she tears your heart to pieces, and as it gets older and stronger, it will tear deeper. Love her, love her, love her." Of course, her manipulations eventually backfire, and she becomes, for all her material riches, spiritually and emotionally impoverished. Poor Miss Havisham, all dressed up with no place to go. She is an ironic counter-image to the guest in today's gospel lesson who, though invited to the king's lavishly prepared wedding banquet, are full of excuses and refuse to come. What are we to make of this parable? Not only is its violent imagery disturbing, but it makes no logical sense whatsoever. If, as scholars tell us, it's an allegory with the king representing God and the son is, guess who, Jesus, then how are we to understand this petulant God who sends troops to burn an entire city over a dinner party? What kind of banquet are we talking about where the prepared oxen and fat calves can sit on the table apparently indefinitely until the carnage dies down? And why would the king be surprised when a B-list guest doesn't just happen to have the appropriate wedding attire? He should be thrown into outer darkness because of that? What, in heaven's name, does the king expect? This story is the third in a trilogy of parables which Jesus addresses to the religious big shots of the temple in Jerusalem. Keep in mind that this is the day after Jesus' triumphal entry into the city. The hosannas have barely subsided when Jesus arrives at the temple steps, and then As if he were not already causing enough of an uproar, he creates a very public ruckus by driving out the money changers. Can't you just see it? Furniture crashing on the floor, coins skittering across stone, the surprised merchants scrambling to recover the day's take. No wonder tempers are short and tensions are high. And Jesus, being Jesus, doesn't even try to de-escalate things. Matthew tells us he leaves town, but then instead of staying away long enough for things to cool down, Jesus is back in Jerusalem the very next day. Fearless, he heads straight for the hornet's nest of the temple, and boom, 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 he zings the temple authorities 3 times. 3 parables, 3 zings. By the time he has done, Jesus has crossed the point of no return. Were we to read the verse following today's lesson, the Pharisees then went and plotted to entrap him. We could not help but see that Jesus is deliberately trying to force their hand. Which brings us back round to the parable of the wedding banquet. This parable and the ones before it are indeed severe, but time is running out, and Jesus knows it. So he is taking the opportunity to confront people of privilege and power. In this case, the religious leaders. People, in other words, who have a stake in keeping things exactly like they are. As for us, our problem is not a vengeful king waiting for us to make a wrong move so he can unleash destruction. Our problem is that we too, whether we want to or not, get caught up in the score-keeping, ladder-climbing, worthiness judging world where business as usual means finding our place by being better than someone else. And when we live this way, whether we intend to or not, we become keepers of the status quo. We become collaborators in the world as we see it displayed on our screens every day. Exploitive, grasping, self-centered, murderous. I, for one, don't want to live this way. And I know you don't either. And Jesus came, I believe, not to, quote, pay it all on our behalf, to get us off the accountability hook, as it were, but to show us, by his example, to show us how to live this different way. A way that requires much of us. A way that requires we open our hands to loosen the reins of control. Open our minds to let go of the need to measure up. And open our hearts to accept the possibility of love so extravagant we cannot, no matter how hard we try, escape its embrace. What does the king expect? A feast has been prepared, and we are invited. The young hero Pip had expectations that wealth and social standing would win the heart of his beloved. Miss Havisham expected revenge to mend her broken heart. This God who made us, who endlessly woos us, and will stop at nothing to win us. This God expects us to respond. And when we refuse, even the heart of God can break. One of the saddest moments in all of Scripture comes at the end of this week, Holy Week, it just so happens. Jesus is with his disciples on the Mount of Olives, overlooking the city he loves. He has tried everything to no avail, and he laments, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing." I do not want to break God's heart. Today, at least today, I want to run toward the spread wings, toward the open arms of God. I want to be the bride in Mary Oliver's poem, married to amazement. I want to be the bridegroom, taking the world into my arms. Oh, people of God, the feast is ready.